Good morning. Today I thought I'd read just the first chapter of my new series, Qui Magi, from Book 1, Alchimia. The chapters aren't very long. Chapter 1 is just 6 pages. If you like what you hear and you'd like to get a copy of the book, I'll leave a link at the bottom of the video. Chapter 1. December 1228 AD, Umbria, Italy. Milo exhaled, creating his own small white cloud in the frosty air inside his monastic cell. The smell of damp stone and straw mattress was comforting in its familiarity. The monastery of San Biagio was icy in winter, and he had nothing more than a half-burned candle to read by, providing meagre light and almost no warmth. He put his right hand over its flame to warm his stiff fingers, pondering the words he had just read. True, without falsehood, certain, most certain. What is above is like that is what is below. What is below is like that which is above. To make the miracle of the one thing, and as all things were made from contemplation of one, so all things were born from one adaptation. Its father is the sun, its mother is the moon. Milo could not fathom its meaning clearly at all, but felt it contained some vital knowledge and wisdom, if only he could understand it. His heart beat faster as he read the small booklet bearing the enigmatic title, The Emerald Tablet, an ancient text on the mysterious subject of alchemy. Discovery that he'd been accessing the locked section of the monastery library would lead to terrible consequences that he did not dare contemplate. He'd borrowed one book at a time over several weeks, but recently was growing concerned after one of the monks witnessed him returning the key, and the opportunity to return his current book had not yet presented itself. Milo's reading was interrupted by a bell, signifying the commencement of evening prayers. His heart pounded as he leapt from his bunk onto the icy stone floor, slipped on his sandals, then turned and fumbled nervously with the book, which he hid under his bunk. Milo rushed out of his cell into the adjoining corridor and broke another rule by running down its dimly lit length. His sandals slapped noisily on the stone paving as he hurried to the chapel. Milo realised this was the second time he'd been late this week, and the abbot would be very displeased. Skidding to a halt outside the door to the chapel, he took a second to calm himself, then stepped inside. Monks were arranged on both sides, and candles created a warm glow. Evening prayers had already begun, and the chant of his brother monks, which normally soothed him, only heightened his anxiety. Milo's heart sank as the abbot glared at him, even while chanting his prayers. He looked intimidating in his formal Templar habit of a white surcoat with a red cross emblazoned on its front. Milo was in awe of these veterans of the Crusades, and a little afraid of them too. He quickly took up his place and joined in the chant, but was distracted by an irrational, instinctive urge to run. The monk standing beside him touched his arm in reassurance as he sensed the terror the young boy was in, even casting him a querying glance to see what was troubling him. The rhythm of the chanting and the monk's kindness eventually calmed him a little, and by prayer's end he was almost feeling normal again when the abbot gestured for him to come. Abbot Ubertino was a tall man with a strong military bearing, a veteran of several campaigns in the Holy Land. He was still, despite his age, a truly imposing man. "Late again, Milo," he uttered in an angry hiss. Milo blushed, his chin on his chest as he nodded nervously. "You're not a child. You're 15 years of age, an adult now. Can't you manage to be on time, for goodness sake?" The abbot chided angrily. Very sorry, Abbot. It shall not happen again, he said, without lifting his head. It had better not, Ubertino spat out, staring right into Milo's soul. Or so it felt at the time. Now report to the hospice immediately. You've earned an extra night duty for being twice late this week. Yes, Abbot, he replied, as he gulped down a hard lump in his throat. Hurry, the Abbot added curtly. Milo turned and walked quickly out of the chapel. The halls were only dimly lit by an occasional candle, but he knew the layout so well after 7 years of living there that he had no problem finding his way in the dim light. Anxiety arose within him as he remembered the book, hastily thrown under his bed. He urged himself to be calm, but felt certain that the Abbot knew something. Milo opened the door of the hospice with a forced smile, and the panic seemed to fade into the background as he prepared himself for work that he enjoyed, hoping it would provide some distraction. A large hall opened up before him, with beds lining both sides of the room, occupied by the sick and dying. A single candle burned on a table at the far end, and the place smelled of old straw mattresses, body odour, and decay. Although unpleasant, it was not unfamiliar to him, and he found that he soon got used to it during a shift. It was the only hospice in the district and took care of both the townsfolk as well as the monks. Milo enjoyed working there and was a keen student of the healing arts. His attention was caught by an elderly monk who was waving him over. Milo nodded and moved directly towards him, but was intercepted by the monk on duty, who wished to do a brief handover before retiring. Milo indicated to the old monk that he would be there soon and made his way to the candlelit table. I thought you were on last night, the other novice said meaningfully, with a smirk. The same monk who he had overheard call him son of a witch a week earlier. Milo wondered what would motivate anyone to be so spiteful, but he ignored the taunt and listened to a brief account of the condition of the sick, and then he was left alone. Brother Transmundus, an elderly monk dying of an illness of the lungs, waved him over again with greater urgency now. Buonasera, brother. How are you? Milo asked as he drew alongside the bed. Shh! Listen very carefully, the old man whispered insistently. Milo leaned closer. What is it? He replied, frowning. I'm an old man, but my hearing is still good, I tell you. He paused to catch his breath. I heard something that you must heed, and quickly. The feeling of dread that had been troubling Milo earlier returned, gripping his bowels in a knot. His face betrayed his fear, and the old monk whispered, Good, you need to be afraid. He locked eyes with Milo. Your very life is in danger, boy. You must run, he gasped, then coughed a few times. Milo helped him to sit up and pushed the pillow behind his head. Why? He stuttered anxiously. The abbot knows, Transmundus wheezed. Knows what? Milo asked, feeling the rising panic sending his mouth instantly dry. The books, young Milo, the books. You stand accused of heresy, my boy, a serious matter. He coughed and wheezed. You have been reading from the... He was stopped by a coughing fit. Milo finished the sentence. The Forbidden Library? Yes, the old monk hissed. He knows and searches your room right now. You must flee, he muttered between gasping breaths. Milo's head reeled in panic. He knew in an instant what this would mean, and he grabbed the old man's hand. Are you certain? He whispered. Transmundus nodded emphatically. His shaking hand reached down beside his bed and took a hold of his old cloak. Take this and flee. Now? Milo asked, not quite sure this was really happening. The old monk coughed and nodded, then squeezed Milo's hand surprisingly firmly. Leave now and don't come back. There are a few coins in the purse in my cloak. I won't be needing either soon. Go, and Godspeed, my young friend. Then the old monk lay his head back and tried to get his breath. Milo stood and looked around the hall, then back at his old friend, who nodded towards the door. Go now. Use the secret passageway, not the gate. He trailed off, coughing. Milo squeezed the old monk's hand and said, I owe you my life. God be with you, my friend. Transmundus nodded, squeezed his hand back feebly, and coughed again. Milo then turned and hurried towards the door. A lump formed in his throat, and he felt overwhelmed by several emotions. But the dominant one, gripping his insides like a fist, was dread. There you go. I hope you enjoyed chapter 1. If you'd like to read the rest of the book, I'll leave a link to where you can find it on Amazon Kindle below. Thank you and have a good day.